Tonight, a stunning development involving a former member of the British royal family. 6 companies linked to Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, are being formally shut down following renewed scrutiny tied to newly released Epstein-related documents. This is not rumor. It is not social media speculation. Filings have been submitted to dissolve multiple corporate entities connected to Ferguson after public reporting raised fresh questions about past associations and financial dealings. And the timing matters, because these closures come just weeks after additional documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein were made public. Documents that have reignited scrutiny across political, financial, and royal circles. In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's confirmed, what's being claimed, and the one detail most coverage is skipping that changes how this unfolds. Stay with me, because once you see how these pieces connect, the entire situation looks very different. Here's what we know right now. According to reporting from BBC, The Guardian, and U.S. outlets, 6 companies where Sarah Ferguson was listed as a director are in the process of being wound down. Official filings were submitted to Companies House in the United Kingdom. These are documented corporate actions, not anonymous claims. What is not confirmed, and what requires discipline here, is whether these closures are legally compelled, financially motivated, reputationally driven, or purely administrative. That distinction matters, because there is a difference between wrongdoing and fallout. There is a difference between direct involvement and reputational exposure. And there is a difference between allegations, associations, and proven misconduct. What makes this story significant is not simply that companies are closing, it's the broader accountability question. Why now? What changed? And who knew what? And when? Before we go further, if you value fact-based reporting that separates confirmed developments from speculation, subscribe to the Caldwell report so you don't miss critical updates as this story unfolds. Because in a case like this, the second layer is always more revealing than the headline. Let's now move carefully through what is confirmed, and only what is confirmed, according to multiple established outlets including the BBC, The Guardian, and U.S. reporting. First, 6 companies where Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, was listed as a director are in the process of being formally wound down. Filings have been submitted to Companies House, the official corporate registry in the United Kingdom. These filings indicate voluntary strike-off proceedings, a legal process used to dissolve companies. Second, the timing of these closures follows renewed public scrutiny connected to recently released Epstein-related documents. Those documents, made public in late January, included additional names and correspondence that reignited media examination of individuals previously linked socially or professionally to Jeffrey Epstein. Third, public reporting confirms that Sarah Ferguson had past associations with Epstein. Most notably, in 2010, Epstein reportedly paid $15,000 toward a debt Ferguson owed to her former assistant. Ferguson publicly acknowledged that payment at the time and issued an apology, stating it was a serious error in judgment. That admission is part of the public record and has been previously reported for years. Fourth, there is no current reporting from law enforcement indicating that Ferguson is under criminal investigation related to these company closures. No charges have been announced. No official findings of wrongdoing have been made public. Fifth, the companies being dissolved are corporate entities connected to various business activities and charitable or commercial ventures. Reporting does not indicate that these closures were ordered by a court or regulator. The filings appear to be voluntary. Now here is where precision matters. It is confirmed that the companies are closing. It is confirmed that renewed scrutiny followed the document release. It is confirmed that Ferguson previously acknowledged receiving funds from Epstein in 2010. What is not confirmed is that these closures are legally mandated or tied to any newly alleged criminal conduct, and that distinction is critical, because corporate dissolution can occur for many reasons: reputational, financial, strategic, or administrative. The confirmed timeline is clear, but the motive behind the timing remains unconfirmed. Now we move into the tension point, where public claims begin to outpace confirmed facts. Since the release of the latest Epstein-related documents, online commentary and some opinion-driven outlets have suggested that these 6 company closures represent evidence of deeper wrongdoing. That is a claim. It is not a confirmed finding. Let's separate this carefully. Claim: the shutdown of multiple Ferguson-linked companies is an attempt to avoid scrutiny. Reality: There is no publicly released legal determination stating that these closures were ordered by regulators or tied to criminal charges. The filings appear to be voluntary strikeoffs through Companies House procedures. Claim: the newly released Epstein documents directly implicate Ferguson in new misconduct. Reality: as of now, no law enforcement agency has publicly announced new allegations or charges against her stemming from the latest document release. Most references in reporting relate to previously known associations, including the 2010 financial assistance from Epstein that Ferguson publicly addressed years ago. Claim: the timing proves guilt. Reality: timing raises questions. It does not prove intent. Businesses can be dissolved for reputational containment, financial restructuring, inactivity, or strategic repositioning. Without formal findings, motive remains speculative. Now here's where this story becomes more layered. Even if no criminal wrongdoing is confirmed, reputational exposure in high-profile Epstein-related cases has historically triggered rapid institutional distancing. We have seen corporations, universities, political offices, and charities move swiftly when names appear in proximity to Epstein's network, regardless of legal liability. That pattern is factual. But proximity is not proof. And that distinction is where responsible reporting must hold the line. What also matters is public trust. When figures connected to institutions, especially royal institutions, have past associations with someone as notorious as Epstein, scrutiny intensifies whether new allegations exist or not. The public question becomes less about legal guilt and more about transparency. And that's where coverage often drifts into assumption. Right now, confirmed facts show closures. They do not show formal accusations. And that gap between suspicion and evidence is exactly where disciplined analysis must remain steady. Because in stories like this, narrative can move faster than proof. Now we turn to the broader accountability question. Not criminal liability, but institutional responsibility. When 6 companies connected to a high-profile public figure are dissolved within weeks of renewed scrutiny, it raises legitimate governance questions. Who made the decision? Was it initiated by Ferguson directly? By advisors? By legal counsel? By financial partners? Public filings show voluntary strikeoff proceedings, which typically require director authorization. That suggests this was an internal decision, not an externally imposed sanction. But again, that is procedural context, not proof of motive. Here's where power dynamics enter the equation. Public figures with institutional connections, especially those tied to royalty, operate within a reputational ecosystem. Decisions are often made not just for legal survival, but for image containment. And in high-profile cases involving Epstein-related disclosures, reputational management has historically moved faster than legal action. That does not imply wrongdoing. It does suggest risk calculation. Another layer: transparency. Corporate dissolutions are legal tools. But when entities connected to public figures are wound down during periods of scrutiny, the public is left asking whether records, financial structures, or governance decisions will remain accessible. Companies' house filings preserve basic records. However, dissolution can limit future reporting requirements and operational disclosures. Again, that is structural reality, not accusation. Now consider institutional insulation. Unlike elected officials, members of royal circles operate in a gray zone of influence without direct democratic accountability. That means reputational consequences often function as the primary corrective mechanism. If no regulator compels action, and no prosecutor brings charges, public perception becomes the driving force. And perception shifts quickly when Epstein's name re-enters headlines. So the accountability question becomes this: if no law has been publicly alleged to have been broken, why was such rapid corporate contraction deemed necessary? Legal compliance, financial consolidation, or reputational firewalling? Until formal statements clarify motive, we are left with observable action, but incomplete explanation. And in matters involving public trust and elite networks, explanation matters. At first glance, this may appear to be a contained royal business story: corporate filings, reputational management, and media scrutiny. But the ripple effects extend further. When high-profile figures with institutional influence face renewed scrutiny connected to Epstein-related disclosures, it reinforces a broader public concern: whether powerful networks are held to the same transparency standards as everyone else. That perception gap affects public trust, not just in individuals, but in institutions. The Epstein case has become, for many citizens, a symbol of elite insulation. Over the years, it has touched finance, politics, academia, and royalty. Each new document release reopens the same underlying question: who knew what, and who avoided consequences? In this case, no new charges have been announced against Sarah Ferguson. No regulator has publicly alleged misconduct tied to these corporate closures. But public confidence does not operate solely on legal thresholds. It operates on transparency. When multiple entities linked to a public figure are dissolved during a moment of renewed scrutiny, even if lawful, it can reinforce skepticism about how elite circles respond to exposure. That skepticism has real-world consequences. It shapes voter attitudes. It influences how citizens view media coverage. It affects how people interpret future disclosures involving public officials or prominent families. And it contributes to a broader erosion of institutional credibility, particularly in environments where many feel that consequences are unevenly distributed. There is also the financial dimension. Corporate dissolution can impact employees, partners, vendors, and charitable beneficiaries, depending on the nature of the businesses involved. While reporting has not detailed large workforce impacts in this case, business wind-downs always involve stakeholders beyond the director's name on a filing. And then there is the cultural impact. Royal associations carry symbolic weight. For many in the United Kingdom and beyond, the monarchy represents continuity, tradition, and moral stewardship. Stories that reopen past Epstein ties, even indirectly, strain that symbolic trust. So even absent confirmed wrongdoing, the public impact centers on confidence. Confidence in transparency, confidence in accountability, and confidence that influence does not shield scrutiny. Those questions linger long after filings are processed. Here's where this stands tonight. 6 companies linked to Sarah Ferguson are being voluntarily dissolved. That is confirmed through companies' house filings. The timing follows renewed scrutiny tied to recently released Epstein-related documents. That is also confirmed. Her past acknowledgement of receiving $15,000 from Jeffrey Epstein in 2010 and publicly apologizing for it remains part of the established public record. What is not confirmed is any new criminal charge, regulatory action, or formal finding tied to these closures. And that line matters, because high-profile stories move fast, often faster than verified evidence. So what should we watch? First, whether Ferguson or her representatives provide a detailed explanation for the dissolutions. Second, whether UK regulators or law enforcement signal any formal review connected to these entities. Third, whether additional Epstein-related disclosures materially change the public record. At this stage, the facts show corporate shutdowns. The unanswered question is motive, precaution, reputation management, financial restructuring. Until official findings say otherwise, responsible analysis requires discipline, not assumption. We will continue to monitor verified developments. Subscribe for updates. We follow the facts.